Stevens Transport. Man, I don't even know where to begin. Well, how about if you guys bear me a little bit of time before we get into Stevens Transport? I want to begin where I started off trucking. I was about 14, 15 years old. And my father put me in his truck. I mean, that was the most exciting time of my life, to spend some time with my pops, because I never really got to see him as often as, many kids that actually grew up with their pops. Don't get it twisted. My pops was definitely around, and every time he came around, he always had a toy for me, But those were always my greatest moments, hanging out with my old man, especially in the truck. And then one day he allowed me to drive his truck, and I had no idea as to what it is I had to fucking do. I was so nervous, man. I can still remember how sweaty I started to become, because I know that my father was kind of a perfectionist when it came to his truck. He had the dual stick truck, but I guess he must have had a lot of confidence in me to operate the thing. And lo and behold, man, it came to the point when I turned 16, I started working with my pops. He would be in the back, I would be driving. He had the KW 900, I believe that's what it is. It was big, man, at least to my eyes when I was at that age. So it was a wonderful experience. Let's fast forward to my trucking. I started officially trucking for Express Trucking and Courier in New York. Started off with I started off box truck, straight truck, and then straight truck reefer, and then day cab. And then I moved on years later to CRST. I had to take a retrain because I never driven I've never officially on record driven a big rig before, although I've had the experience. So, when it came down to taking a test and all that other stuff, I did all of that, and I passed everything with flying colors, man. With flying colors. I was kind of rushing my class, or trying to rush through everything and just go straight for the test, but I had to follow their procedures and everything and how everything was going. But it was a great experience. This was up in Ohio. No, not Ohio, Iowa. And the experience there was average experience. It was a team driving job. Really didn't like the team driving, even when I started having females in my truck. I just could not trust their driving at all. But 2 years later after that, I transferred over to Stevens Transport. Okay, now we're getting into Stevens Transport. Man, the experience at the beginning in terms of me having to do like a retrain again, I don't even know why I had to do a retrain. I thought they would just put me in the truck with someone that would help me learn how to operate the reefer. And reefer is the type of trucking that I wanted to get into anyway. I seen it for me coming into trucking, coming into the trucking industry, the trucking world. I thought to myself that was the big boy move, to operate the reefer trucks, but at Stevens Transport, it was hell at the beginning, because they just kept me on hold and going from this department, that department, this department, that department. And it just took so long for me to get back in the truck. I had to go through fucking hula hoops and dance like a fucking bitch just to get back into the fucking truck, and they almost destroyed my trucking enthusiasm. It came down to the point where I was ready to leave, at the beginning processes of Stevens Transport. I'm an experienced driver. I figured, I would just, jump in the truck with someone that could teach me how to do the job that they wanted me to do in a way that they wanted me to do it, how the paperwork might be different. It wasn't much difference, but there was also more work, more responsibility to operating the reefer, making sure, the loads were, the refrigerator was operating correctly the way that it was supposed to. And when I got in the truck, I was so fucking happy, man. You know, but let me tell you the pros and cons about Stevens Transport. I'm gonna go with the pros first. The pros about Stevens Transport as a trucker, you know, not as, you know, Stevens Transport got a lot of beginner drivers there, so they probably won't be able to understand where I'm coming from. But the pros at Stevens Transport is the fact that they keep you running. They got loads upon loads upon loads upon loads. They go everywhere, and it's a, you know, they have team operation, but they also have solo, you know. And I, of course, you know, knowing me, I wanted to get into the solo position. They got the best trucks there, and it's not just specifically the KW and the Peterbilts. You know, they also, well, when I got there, they had KW, Peterbilts, which they still have, Freightliners and Volvos. But they got rid of their Volvos because their engines were terrible. They're getting rid from, by the time I was up to the point of leaving Stevens Transport, they were getting rid of their Freightliners, because the Cummins X15 proved to be more of a workhorse, more of a power horse of an engine, and it preserved probably about 1 gallon of fuel going up I-81 westbound. Well, I-81 westbound is like the longest uphill in the world, coming out of damn, I can't remember what state, but it's a very long uphill, you know. And that's, you know, there I-81 and I-95 is where you'll find some of the worst fuel economies until you hit the west. For some reason, I don't know, but I'm not going to get into the technicalities of that. But that's pretty much the pros about Stevens Transport. Also, you know, they are extremely compartmentalized. They got fuel for the fuel department. And when I say extremely, it's like this. You can't ask anything about, you know, your tires. You can't ask anything about tires with Stevens Transport fuel department. They'll tell you, hey, listen, you have to go to the mechanics about your tires and your questions and all that other stuff about the tires. You know, so you couldn't go to one department, ask about something that's not what that department does not professionalize in. They would make you, even if they had the answer, they would make you go to the people who had the answer, who was specifically about that department. So they're extremely compartmentalized, which is a good thing, you know, but the process is extremely slow. You'll probably have a downtime of up to a minimum of 2 days with Stevens Transport, you know, just trying to keep everything right. But the thing is, they're not doing this to keep their trucks in line. They're doing this to keep their drivers, you know, bombarded with dictatorship, to the point where it's like Stevens Transport basically it was fucking stressful being up there. And it came down to the point where I told my dispatcher, I don't want any more loads going into Texas or coming out of Texas. I want to stay out of Texas, you know. So I was thankful for that my dispatcher kept me out of Texas. But another good thing about Stevens Transport is the simple fact that many of their dispatchers, well, for one, the dispatch department is better than any other dispatch department that I have experienced, even with this company that I'm with now. And their dispatchers, many of their dispatchers have trucking experience, other than the dispatchers at CRST and the company that I'm with now, you know. So they pretty much understand where I'm coming from when I have a complaint about something, you know. Stevens Transport, what else can I say in terms of pros with Stevens Transport? I can't give pros on payments. I think I'm gonna have to be, you know, jump right into the cons about Stevens Transport. Their payments is terrible. I hate their payments. I mean, 1 cent per year, that's the only raise that you get, is 1 cent per year with Stevens Transport. That is horrible, because the value of the dollar drops 2 to 4% every year, depending on what party is in office. You know, if there's a Republican president, the dollar drops 2 to 3%. The value of the dollar drops 2 to 3% every year. If there is a Democrat in office, the value of the dollar drops 3 to 4% every year, because those bitches, they love to print money. But 1 cent per year raise, that is not good enough. And today, If they're still doing it like that, then it's highway robbery because, you know, the fuel prices have gone down. You know, it was crazy to see fuel prices at $2, $3. Right now, I'm seeing a fuel price at $3.14. You know, and even though that's high, that's nothing in comparison to when I was doing lease purchasing with Stevens Transport at one point. You know, I got into their lease purchasing program only because I wanted to learn how to take care of the truck. I didn't get into the lease purchasing, I got into the leasing. You know, but lease purchasing and leasing is still the same thing because the payments are the same. The only difference is that you potentially can make more money because if you're doing lease purchasing, your truck is faster. You know, they move your govern up to what, 75 miles an hour, and with the speed that you are able to obtain, you can make it to your destination a whole lot faster. But with that, that only works in terms of being able to make more money and pull more loads, making, you know, pulling more miles, as if you're doing the drop and hook division. That's another thing. That's a pro about Stevens Transport. They had different divisions. They had the meat division, they had the produce division, and they had the dry goods division. You know, but their dry goods division was mostly drop and hook. You know, mostly drop and hook. On a scale of 1 to 10, 9% of the time it was drop and hook. You know, and occasionally they would have me, you know, doing their meat runs, because their meat runs is the cream of the crop for Stevens Transport. Now, the other thing about Stevens Transport is safety department. Safety department is completely overrated, like a son of a bitch. You know, they treat their experienced drivers like rookies, you know. But the thing is that if you were to do a comparison between their experienced drivers and their rookies, there's been more accidents with their rookies than their experienced drivers. But it doesn't matter how experienced you are, how inexperienced you are, you know. External situations is never really in your control. The only control that you have is the control over your truck and the instincts that you have to make the necessary moves to make. My problem with Stevens Transport with their trucks is the govern on their fucking trucks. You know, it kept me on the road much longer than I needed to be. You know, and to have a governed truck to go from one end of the country to the other end of the country was fucking ridiculous, because it was like you had to rush no matter what just to make the load on time. You know, but it didn't matter whether you made the load on time or not, you still got your money's worth. But the thing was that I wanted the speed specifically to, you know, drive fast out of clusters of trucks, because if one son of a bitch, you know, fucks up, then everybody gets into an accident. You know, no matter how much you try to avoid it. You know, even if you are keeping your distance, you know, because you can't stop that fast on slippery surfaces, especially brand new pavement that's wet, basically. The governed trucks, and then you got the safety department. Like I said, it's completely overrated. They treat their drivers, their experienced drivers, like rookies. You know, it's a waste of time to have to come in every 3 fucking months. They said, Stevens Transport says that drivers have a tendency to drop in terms of professionality, in terms of trucking etiquettes or trucking safety every 3 months, which is total bullshit. You know, because my father has been driving for a very long time, and it came to a point where he started staying more often in his truck than he was at the house. So, and my father had spent like 6 months out on the road. So what is Stevens Transport talking about? They're talking about bullshit, basically. You know, and they make up all of these bullshit realities to open up so many different departments within Stevens Transport so that everyone can have a job. It's understandable, but don't put your drivers in that kind of stress. Don't stress your drivers out, and don't put us in all that downtime. You know, another pro about Stevens Transport, okay? Looks like I'm going to be mixing up the pros and the cons. Whenever you came over to Stevens Transport, you got a PM done on your truck. You know, Sometimes, well, and if you're leasing or lease purchasing, if you wanted a PM done on your truck, you didn't have to get one done on your truck because you wanted to minimize your downtime. And these trucks, they really don't need any high maintenance or pre-maintenance every 3 months. It's actually, it could be every 6 months depending on the truck. Their Freightliners were constantly inside of the mechanic shop because there was always a problem with their Freightliner trucks, and there was a lot of downtime with their Freightliner trucks, especially when they broke down over the road. You know, there was a lot of downtime to the point where they had to fly out some of their, like, let's say if you were in Portland, Oregon, you had to fly all the way back down to Texas to pick up a loaner truck, or they would get you a loaner. They would have you go to the nearest KW and pick up a semi new truck over there. And man, that's pretty much that's another pro with Stevens Transport. But yeah, the safety department was really fucking stressful, really stressful, you know. And I thought it was all bullshit, you know. And they make you sign these papers. Well, they don't make you, don't have to, but whenever you sign something, just put "without prejudice" underneath it. You know, always sign in purple. But they make money off your signatures. You know, they make money off those signatures. You know, I forgot where you can turn signatures in and get money for signatures, but you can make a lot of money off of people just signing shit, even if it's not their authentic, you know, signature. As long as the signature is there with a printed name, you can make money off of that. I forgot how you can do it. I guess you guys are going to look that up anyway, you know, especially the clever guys. That's all about their money. So, but yeah, these guys, they make money off of you especially every time you come into the fucking safety department. They're making a lot of money off of you being there, you know. And they put all this pressure on you. Why you do this? Why you do that? You could have done this. You could have done that. You shoulda, coulda, woulda. Shut the fuck up, motherfucker. I mean, the safety department pissed me the fuck off because they got all these bells and whistles on their truck. You know, they got all these buzzers inside of their truck to where you hit a white line or a yellow line, get too close to the line, and they start buzzing off in your ear. You know what the fuck I did? I removed those fucking speakers. Go fuck yourself. Fuck with me. You know, because I'm extremely rebellious against stress. I'm extremely rebellious against bullshit. You know, so I did everything I can not to come back to Stevens Transport. And I had realized that the meat department was better than every other department there because you didn't have to come back to Stevens Transport. You did all of your paperwork and all of your safety talk bullshit outside of Stevens Transport, and the downtime was only a couple of hours, and they serve you dinner, steak, you know, really good steak. I remember when they had gotten Kobe steak, man. Like, wow, dude, this is a Kobe steak. That was the best tasting steak I have ever tasted. Oh my God. It was so smooth and buttery. Oh man, I will never forget. But this is only because I was working in the meat department with Stevens Transport. And the meat department, they want to keep those guys running as much as they can, you know. But with the meat department, you really don't have to go back to Stevens Transport. And I was able to stay out an entire fucking year without going back to Stevens Transport for any fucking thing, you know. And I had the KW truck, and the KW truck, no problems. You know, minor problems here and there during the winter time, but nothing that the TA or the Loves couldn't fix. You know what I mean? So that was the only department with Stevens Transport that I was good at, but I needed to make the money, so I switched over to their craft department. And the craft was drop and hook. That was the best thing about it. Just drop the trailer, hook up to another trailer, and you're 100% good. Just drive and go where you need to go. But that was only central portion of the country, Midwest and East. You know, the furthest I've gone east was New York, you know, with a truck that big. And they sent me to places that they knew. Well, they sent all their experienced drivers to places that they knew their 1-year driver or their 6-month driver or their 3-month driver couldn't go. So they did everything that they could to keep all of their new drivers out of the Northeast, specifically because the Northeast got a lot of reckless drivers up there. You know, there's just no space in the Northeast, completely overpopulated and overran. And you got people in the city areas that have cars, specifically New York, that don't even need it. So they don't have a place to park, and You know, you got people that come home from work in New York that has to sit out in their cars and wait for somebody to move their car just to get a parking space. Totally ridiculous, but it's just like Stevens Transport. You know, a lot of downtime when you have to come back to Stevens Transport, and their medical department was a total ripoff as well. Complete highway robbery. They forced me to have to wear a CPAP machine. Excuse me. They forced me to have to wear a fucking CPAP machine to get in, to continue to drive. They diagnosed me with sleep apnea. They diagnosed me with sleep apnea. They gave me sleep apnea because I had no problems with sleeping. I don't snore. I get all the sleep that I need to get. I'm rarely exhausted. And the only time I ever get exhausted, if that's what their issue was, because, you know, Stevens Transport watches you, you know, and if you're having trouble keeping up with making a lot of loads and you're constantly exhausted, and they see that you pull over more often than necessary to get your rest or your sleep, you know, they take that in account to the medical department, and they give all of that information to the medical department. And the medical department there at Stevens Transport, they would say he's probably not getting enough sleep, or he's probably not getting the sleep that he's supposed to get. How the fuck can you get sleep with a CPAP machine on? Who the fuck is going to fucking put up with that shit? You know, and when I found out that I had no choice but to get a CPAP machine, it pissed me off. It pissed me off even more because I was forced to get it. They told me that I wouldn't be able to drive with them or another company. Basically, they threatened me that if I should leave, I wouldn't be able to drive with another company because I don't have a CPAP machine. So I ended up staying, and then I started asking questions about this and that, this company, that company, you know. But that's when I realized, wait a minute, I can always get a new medical card. And that's another thing, the con about their medical card. If you get a medical card that says 2 years on it, that you don't have to get another medical in 2 years. It didn't matter with Stevens Transport. It really didn't matter to them because they would say it's useless with them. You have to get their card, which only lasts 3, 6, 9 months, maybe even a year, you know, and you had to come back. Mine's lasted 3 months, so I had to come back every 3 months to get my medical card renewed with Stevens Transport. That was downtime. That was taking money out of my pocket because I had to go through hell and helagon to fucking complete their medical division before I can get back in the fucking truck. And then I had to, you know, force myself to wear their CPAP machine bullshit, you know. So basically that company is definitely about money. Every business should be, but it's highway robbery. It's stress on the driver. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of drivers got into accidents that was avoidable, you know, because Stevens Transport is the primary stress of the drivers there. You know, they want too much from the driver specifically to protect their insurance. I heard that Stevens Transport is a self-insured company, you know, but I really didn't care. But Stevens Transport was the biggest stress of my trucking life, of my trucking career, because I had no freedom. I had no independence. I kept being questioned as an experienced driver, which is fucking disrespectful. You know, so, I mean, basically, Stevens Transport just is not and was not for me. You know, of course, you're going to have rookies that come online, that come on YouTube and say, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with Stevens Transport. Just follow the rules. Well, you're a fucking rookie. You don't know shit. You know, because there's this guy named King D-Raj, some shit like that. And he made a video about, you know, what I'm talking about, in opposition of what I'm talking about, you know. But he was you know, for that alone, I consider him to be a piece of shit, because he doesn't know shit. You don't know nothing, motherfucker. You don't know shit, you know. And, you know, some of the guys there that work in Stevens Transport facility, they didn't like him because he was making a percentage of money off of other drivers. So basically, what Stevens Transport was paying a new driver, they had to get probably 2% less of what their actual pay was, because he got himself involved in Stevens Transport to make money by leasing out a couple of trucks. Hey, good for you, man. You're moving on with your business mentality and all that other stuff. But everybody else is getting fucked, you know, on the other side, and it turns you into a heartless son of a bitch, all for the sake of your family. You know what I'm saying? You put somebody else under the bus. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to making money, and trucking is a stressful job. So you had one person in safety department that didn't like him. You had a couple of drivers who converted to being dispatchers that didn't like him because of it, because they found out how he was making money. But anyway, you know, Stevens Transport just taught me what not to look for when it comes to looking for a company. I am going to get back into owner-operator. I'm not in it right now because there was some issues, pretty much where I lost the truck. The bank took it back. This is after Stevens Transport, but the bank took the truck back because I couldn't make the payments. COVID-19 hit. You know, I left Stevens Transport and I was running out of money, and I was trying to get a local job while the COVID-19 thing was going on, and I couldn't find any local jobs, you know. But yeah, that's my experience with Stevens Transport. Basically, it was fucking hell. It was fucking hell, you know. And I probably would have gotten with any other company, but I was, at the time, I was ready to leave, but I was looking for a company that had KW trucks specifically, and engine wise I was looking for the Cummins X15, because there's no downtime with those engines. With their Detroit engines, there were a lot of downtimes, especially when you went outside of Stevens Transport and they had to wait for parts to come in. But I fucking preferred KWs, and I was looking for companies with KWs. Found a lot of companies with KWs, but they had the PACCAR engine in them, and I did not want any downtime. But even though PACCAR engines are good, you know, they're very good engines, but they lack power. Volvos, they lack power, they lack torque. You know, if you was to go online and do a comparison between the Cummins X15 versus Volvo's newest engines, it pales in comparison, you know. So that's what kept me back as well. Plus I wanted to do reefer, and I didn't want to operate reefer under Freightliner, Detroit. You know, I was pretty much stubborn and stuck on those quality trucks, you know. So I stayed with Stevens Transport. And some people that's probably watching my videos at Stevens Transport think that I got kicked out of Stevens Transport. I didn't get kicked out of Stevens Transport. It was a ticket issue that I needed to take care of. The problem was that I did not have legal representation before the fact. I should have had legal representation. Otherwise, I would have just been able to give them the ticket and they would have taken care of the ticket for me, you know. So yeah, that was the situation there with Stevens Transport, and they temporarily paused my contract with them, and they told me to go and take care of this ticket situation that I got, you know. And I was taking care of it, you know. I thought I was taking care of it, but you know, the DMV closed down, my license was expiring, you know, and I was fucking stuck between a rock and a hard place. You know what I'm saying? And it was a trialful situation for me, a trialful situation. But I ended up getting into a legal situation with Stevens Transport, because they put on my record that I had caused an accident, when the accident was, in causality of the accident was due to the other driver, you know. And I explained that to them, you know, and I made myself a legal representation for myself to try to fix what they were accusing me of at Stevens Transport, you know, because I was trying to get a contract with another company, and the other company said that my DAC report, you know, with Stevens Transport, you know, is coming up with an accident on it, you know. But even though it wasn't on my CSA, my record outside of Stevens Transport, my record with the DOT was clean, but Stevens Transport was holding me hostage because they wanted me to come back. And they, when I ended up getting back into the trucking business, as I am right now, 2 people called me to come back. They are more than likely, they fucking looked at my my record in terms of how much revenue I brought back for the company. I brought back the most revenue for Stevens Transport from their craft loads.